Assalamu alaikum, welcome to Ahlul Bayt TV with our special Saturday night programme, Let's Talk Marriage. And this show has been held in response to a survey that was conducted by Islamic Unity Society in the UK, in which the majority of respondents said that the topics they would like most talked about are marriage. 64% of those who responded said that one of the most important subjects to discuss today is the issue of marriage. And today we're going to be looking at the role of parents in assisting their children in getting married. How traditional, in certain terms, should that role be? How are we negotiating the changes in our society with regard to that role? How involved should they be or not should they be? So we have our guests, Maulana Sayyid Ali Raza Rizvi, and we also have Brother Mustafa Khan, who has been with Islamic Unity Society for many years, and Brother Abbas Mirali, who has produced books on marriage and parenthood as well. So, Assalamu alaikum, welcome. Thank you for giving us your time again tonight. So, yes, tonight we're going to be talking about parents and their involvement in helping their children to get married. And I think one of the issues today is that obviously with changing values, Muslims living in a society where they are renegotiating cultural ways of getting married, Islamic ways of getting married, Western ways of getting married, it's now quite difficult to work out what is the appropriate role for the parents, and this can vary, I suppose, from family to family. First of all, I was going to ask Maulana Sayyid Ali Raza Rizvi, in your experience, in general, what are the general trends with regards to the role of parents in helping their children get married these days? Are children becoming, or young adults becoming, more independent, or are they still quite close to their parents in the decision making?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I do find that many young adults still rely upon their parents in finding them proposals and helping them out. And according to Sharia, the parent's role is the role of a guide and a role of a person who assists in finding the best proposal or the best potential for their children. Especially for girls, so they cannot be manipulated or misused by the society. And even when they are children, they're literally children, they're not young adults. It is parents' responsibility to look after so that they are not bullied up, even between themselves. So hence, it is the role of the parent is basically, there are two terms used in Arabic, aqil, baligh, and the third term is rashid. When a person is sane, an adult, and once they become independent, or when they, rushd is basically when you are wise, when you can make your own decisions. Now the parent's role is to guide the young children or the young adults to make the right decision, and the father can play a better role in finding a spouse for his daughter, and a mother can play a better role in finding a spouse for her son, because they know their sons quite well and they are from the same gender, looking for a daughter-in-law. But our society still, I feel, especially the subcontinent, most of the children still rely upon parents to look for potential matches for themselves. However, there are many who would still tell their parents that so-and-so person is appropriate for me, or is suitable for me, or they could say that I have decided to marry. So it is, I find that it is still, in our community, still more of a decision on parents' behalf than the children's behalf, especially for girls. And that's how they've been brought up. Even here, they have tried to make the decisions for them. But the role should be not the negative role where they impose upon the children, the decision,
Yeah.
and many times do not keep in mind the needs and especially the compatibility between their children and the potential spouses.
Yeah.
And I do feel that that sometimes is ignored, and parents have decided psychologically that this is the kind of person I want, and if they can't, then they will just compromise on anything and say, okay, this is the right person because he's related to me, or that may not be acceptable.
Yeah.
Islamically, I'm talking about, not culturally. But that may not be acceptable, and that's why we have a high divorce rate in this country, because parents are still 40, 50 years behind their children, and they still have not learned about the needs of their children. And the clashes we find are not just cultural and linguistical, but there are more problems of education and compatibility in terms of being religious or non-religious, and education and so many other issues. So it is not only just culture and language. There are many other issues pertaining the choices.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, in my awareness, you know, of having spoken to people over the years, or they having spoken to me, parents are extremely important in making the decision to get married, and you know, the approval of the parents is is paramount for young people. And you said that, I mean, the theory is that, well, the parents need to be involved because they know their children best, and so on. Brother Mustafa, I was going to bring up this point because it could be argued that many parents don't know their children. So they think they know their children, but often you find the children are having to hide an aspect of their personality in order to fit in with the family, especially now when the next generation are interpreting Islam differently. So you've got the parents who are practicing a kind of the way they practiced back home, and then you've got the youth who are becoming more serious about Islam and practicing differently, but they often have to hide that aspect of themselves. So then you have this conflict. Have you come across many cases like this? If so, I mean, what would your advice be to both parents and young people?
Yeah, I think it's a valid point. You know, I think Imam Ali alayhi salam says, you know, you can't raise your children as you were raised, because the times do change. And I think there have been instances where I think the conversation of marriage is still quite a taboo between child and parent.
Okay.
Depending on their maturity, depending on their age. It's quite an awkward conversation to have for young people, because we're not really coached in schools, we're not really coached in madrasas, or we're quite busy with our own time. We don't have that communication between our parents to say, okay, I'm looking for someone. And I think also, like you said, I think nowadays cultures are mixing a lot more than they used to. So we do see a lot more, I would say, cross-cultural marriages or cross-cultural sort of spouse selections that do take place, and that can make parents a bit more uncomfortable. So then, you know, child would then hide behind, or not hide, but as in they wouldn't be as forthcoming to say, this is what I want to do, which could then lead to a breakdown in communication. So we have seen it, you know, happen across the youth, but I think it's something to be encouraged by parents as opposed to being afraid.
Encouraged as in cross-cultural marriage should be encouraged, or communication should be encouraged, or?
So both just the cultural side as well as how we go about getting married as youth, as in today's society, how we actually approach someone, how we... The process end to end is different. And just recognizing it's different today will go a long way between parent and child. So Brother Basmir Ali, I mean, you must have seen this as well, how you know, there's been a certain fixed range of customs and ways that people have traditionally gone about looking for a spouse for their children. And I mean, I had a conversation with someone, you know, older, respected from the community, who was saying that, again, because of the difficulty now for finding spouses for people's children, they're having to look outside of their
a traditional community. So this is kind of a new thing where things have got so difficult, we're having to kind of go outside of our boundaries, and this is a new experience for the parents. Do you think that maybe, I mean, we're saying the young people need help and support in talking to their parents about marriage, but do you think the parents also need some help in adjusting to this situation?
You know, so when you look at the interaction between the parent and the young adult, you almost look at it in 3 stages. There's pre-marriage, which is the process now. I'm 21, 22. I'm at that phase that I'm looking. Then you get to that phase at after marriage. So the relationship between parent and young adult then. So if the relationship hasn't evolved here, so if the parent is still making decisions on behalf of the young adult, often you hear, why is the marriage broken down? And if it's interference, then you know that the dynamic between the parent and the young adult is still very, there's control up here. And therefore, if it doesn't adjust at this phase, then there's always a form of tension, per se, because someone else is pulling that string. So that's something to be really aware of as a parent and as a young adult. Because if you don't equalize or stabilize that relationship, then when the child comes, or the children come so the grandchildren, that's another phase where a lot of friction happens, where the parents will say, this is how I think this child should be raised. And then you've got someone here thinking, no, actually, I think. So you see, if that dynamic hasn't addressed, then it's an issue. Now, this what tends to happen, so these are scenarios that tend to happen for parents. You're absolutely right. Now, parents feel actually lost because the circle of the friend circle or whatever, the people they see on a weekly basis at the mosque, on a monthly basis at the mosque, and let's say I'm a mum or a dad looking for my son who's 18 or a daughter, the people I'm seeing in mosque, they're not there anymore because they're either at university or they're partaking in now other programs, or now this generation where there's a lot of mosque hopping. So you won't find like I am traditionally bound to this center. I will go to a center because I enjoy the Dua Qumran here. I'll go to the center because now I enjoy the speaker there. So naturally, they feel lost. Is that I don't even know where to start now. So this is what tends to happen. A matchmaker or a facilitator will get a call from a parent, and whenever a parent calls a matchmaker, I think there's always a source of tension here. Is who is it that wants to get married? Is it you or the son or daughter? And if it's the son and daughter, I'd prefer, so if it's me on the other line, I'd prefer to speak to them to find out whether this is something that's been imposed on them. Because then you find that, am I really wasting my time? I'm going to give them some recommendation. As in I'm talking on behalf of a matchmaker. We'll give them a recommendation. And then, so you don't know who's taking charge of that.
So, I mean, this is something else you hear a lot about, is that parents interfere. Obviously, maybe that is again out of the idea that, I mean, naturally they want to help their children. Said Ali Raza Rizvi, I think, I mean, this is something that I've heard a lot, that unfortunately the parents have contributed to the divorce for one reason or another, putting pressure on the young people. Is this really the case, or are parents also being shut out, or beginning to be shut out, or feel shut out? Is there this tension between them wanting to have some sort of control and the young people not actually even giving them the respect they would expect?
I think both are the cases, because I do deal with a lot of reconciliation and when families are breaking up. In the past 18 years in my professional career, I have felt that many parents unfortunately are so controlling, and many times they are so imposing that they lead their children to divorces. And it's not just mothers or just fathers, it can be both. Sometimes it is a father who says, hang on, I'm your father, so I'll be making the decisions. So he'll impose it on the son to say, okay, she's not good enough for you. And sometimes the mother could do the same thing and say she's not good enough for you, and then she could say to the daughter that he's not good enough for you and you should come back. And so they sometimes impose wrong decisions on the children to divorce. And I've also seen that some small issues sometimes lead to a divorce because there wasn't an older person to play an older person's role. The parents had made the children so independent and said, we don't know anything about you, we don't know the language, you have a different culture, you have a different language, it is your life, it is your decision. So they have kept out and they've not played their role as a parent. And sometimes when you sit two people down and speak to them and try and understand their problems, you can many times help. Many times young people only need someone to talk to. They don't even have big issues.
Right.
There is nothing massive, it is nothing. Small issues have led to divorce because they've not had anyone to talk to. Many times parents feel, what if I told my son that you are wrong, and tomorrow if he divorces, then not only I will lose my daughter-in-law, I'll also lose my son. So they don't actually play their role of telling off sometimes and saying who is wrong and sit them down. So both are happening. Some are too controlling, some are too detached.
Yeah.
But there are many who are very positive, so I don't want to say only the negative things.
Yeah.
So who play their role. But I do feel that there are parents who have unfortunately led their children to divorce, either by imposing or by not playing their role.
This is quite interesting because also, I mean, obviously over the years also been in discussions with people about why young people are divorcing so soon, and you hear from older generations that, well, they don't have any patience. This is their problem. You know, they don't have the tolerance that we had. But then this is quite interesting that actually it's not just that the young people might not have tolerance, but that actually because of the mismanagement from the family, this is unfortunately creating the situation. Brother Abbas, you're going to say something?
I mean, you know what Syed said at the beginning was very apt, that the role of parents is one of support.
Yeah.
Okay? Now, there's a very fine line between support and then rescue.
Right.
And the reason, I think one of the reasons the older generations have survived is because they've had to swim on their own at some level. Or they've had to, traverse the world on their own.
Yeah.
They've seen life, as they say. Our generation, we're almost given everything on a plate. Okay? So struggle for us is new. So when you face with tests and trials and things, we crumble much quicker than the generations before us. Because that generation had to, they've lived, they've survived, they've, and their spouses helped. There was this, it was like a real almost a team in their own way.
Yeah.
Okay. Our generation, because of this rescue and everything given on a plate, and we haven't developed as our personalities haven't developed, and this is a big issue that when support turns to rescue.
Yeah, I think we feel more unprepared because our parents are there to save us, basically.
So in the back of your mind?
In the back of my mind, if I can't afford a house, I know my parents will come and buy a house for me. I'm not saying they will, but, but they might just come in and say, we'll deal with this, we've done this before, we're experienced. Whereas I think marriage, as in what it truly really represents, is independence. And what we would like to have is give us time to manage it ourselves, so we don't need interference from parents or in-laws or anyone. Give us that time to build and act as our advisor if we need you, as opposed to proactively coming in with... There's nothing wrong with proactively suggesting and open discussion, but give us a bit of privacy to help us, independently build, because eventually, our parents won't be here forever, so we have to learn some point.
I was going to add something.
Yeah.
There is something that my parents' generation, it's been 50 years my father's been in this country. Now, that generation went through a lot of struggle, and we didn't, like the others have also said. Now, unfortunately, what happens is that because that generation went on to do everything for us, we have taken everything for granted, and we haven't actually had the time to grow up and fight the problems. We have always, and there's this whole debate in psychology of nanny state, where they say, okay, don't get out, the weather's too hot. Don't do this because this is what's happening, and don't eat this. Now our parents have actually pampered us so much. They've pampered us so much so that we haven't actually grown up, even in our 20s. If I look at many of the third world countries, in their teenagers, the children are so street smart and intelligent that many of the children here, even young adults in their 20s. When I first went to, I don't want to mention some of the countries, as a speaker, some of the younger audience, they were running me, they were telling me what to do because they were much more equipped in terms of experience and doing,
We've just got to go to break, but inshallah we'll continue these points because it's interesting, very revealing. We're just going to go to break. You're watching Let's Talk Marriage on Ahlul Bayt TV. We'll be back in a few minutes, and please do feel free to call in with any questions or comments. Assalamu alaikum, welcome back to Let's Talk Marriage on Ahlul Bayt TV, and we are talking about the role of parents. Inshallah, the program will be running up to 9:30 BST, and we were just talking about also the fact that young people don't have many people to talk to about marriage. We've also just heard that you wanted, or people who've been watching the program wanted more examples from the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam about how they went about seeking a spouse, and I mean, we know that they were selecting people for their piety and also with a view, I think this was the subject last week, wasn't it, looking for someone who's going to be a good father or mother to your child. But yes, I suppose this week it's looking at what role did they play in their children getting married. As an example, the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, and his holy progeny. Sayyid Ali Reza Rizi.
If you look at the Holy Prophet, when he's all the Imams read the Aqd and the Nikah for their children.
Right.
So they had an active role. Okay, you can understand the Imams, they were infallibles, but what about the other children? So they had many children and they played that role. And when the children, whenever they turned to the parents, when they had issues, so giving them that advice, but not interfering in their relationship.
Right.
But being there for them, that is very important. Many times you don't feel comfortable talking to your parents at times that I'm not having. Always remember that you don't have to say anything to your parents. They can understand just by your gestures, your actions, your expressions, and just the way you two are acting, that there is something uncomfortable. There is not a good, I know many parents many parents who've suddenly said that I don't think my son's well, can you find out, and why? I'm not just feeling comfortable. And then we'll just phone the son and say, I'm going through, I'm having health issues or having problems. But I didn't tell anyone. How did you know? Well, your mother's saying. So many times you think they don't understand. So the Ahlul Bayt have always said that you need to comfort. Now the parents' role is to comfort them, not to create a panic. Many times the parents say, what's going on? The way they would address the issue creates a panic. Now children are quite impatient, or the young adults are quite impatient. Now parents should try and keep calm and create an environment where the children open up and say what their problems are. I mean, look at the counseling method. They say that when you come in, you both need to come in together. Number one. Number two, the second rule is that when you come in, you both need to be honest. Unfortunately, many people are on their best behavior when outside, and the real comes out when they are with their partner or with their children. Or, when they're at home, the real them comes out, which is quite evil. But on the outside, they're on their best behavior, smiling, everything is good, everything is fine. I cannot advise anyone if I don't know the real problem. I will not be able to guide my son or my daughter if they don't open up and say, well, this is a problem, we are actually struggling. Many issues you cannot even discuss with your parents because of the age gap and also because of the relationship. Now you may have certain problems that are to be discussed with either friends or with a professional or sometimes even a religious figure. So people come and when they discuss those things, we can understand that this cannot be discussed with a parent. Now all sorts of problems can happen between a couple. And the parents need to not sometimes interfere when they understand that, do you want to talk about something? It is better to address like that rather than saying, we know there is a problem.
Okay.
You need to tell me. That role can sometimes help, but most of the time it doesn't. I've seen that if it is making them comfortable and say that, okay, if you want to open up and discuss with me, then I'm there. I don't want to take too much time, but just one last point I want to very quickly make. If you look at the imams, when the people came to them and said, this is a problem that I'm facing, they would never ever make fun of them or discourage them. They would address in such a way that the person always felt satisfied and said, yes, this is, or if they did not feel comfortable, say, no, I don't understand the advice. Then the imam would, the Holy Prophet or the imam will elaborate further. Now, we must understand that at times there usually is a weaker side in a marriage.
Yeah. And
usually it is a woman, not always, but there is a weaker side always in a marriage. There is a stronger, there is a leader in the family, in a marriage, and there is a follower. Now, the follower sometimes can be very deprived and on morally in a position where they do not question, oppose, or confront. And the Holy Prophet ﷺ showed extreme support for the weaker side, and said, hang on, I will not tolerate such and such behavior.
Okay.
Sorry, I went.
No, thank you. No, we've just got a caller on the line, so we're just going to take this call if they're still there. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam. I'm sorry, I think I got it wrong. I thought it was about Islamic unity. So I had a question, how many Islams do you have? I know one is represented by the gentleman, self-prominence, that Islamic Awakening Islam and the Suffering for Islam. So is it a marriage about the Islams and the unity about, and how many Islams do you have? Sorry about that. I think I got it wrong.
No problem. If you have any comment about marriage, you're very welcome to make it.
He's hung up.
I think he's gone. Okay, well, it's always nice to get calls, even if it's to the wrong channel. Yes, I mean, I think important point that you were making as well, Abbas. I could see that you had some comment to make about those points.
I think Said's he's pretty spot on in the way he's just broken it down on the thing. I think that the best thing a parent can give, like if I was to go back to what's the best my parents can give me, is the fact that they believe in me or they trust me.
Right.
Because once I know that they have belief in me, they have trust in me, that underlying foundation, I then know that I'll be able to get through any trial and tribulation. Mm-hmm. What happens is when interference comes, they make me still feel like a child, like I'm incapable. Mm.
Yeah.
And if that keeps happening, my self-confidence gets sucked. And what happens then? It's a very caustic relationship. Like the more I start feeling dependent on them rather than feeling more independent, it's actually the love I have for them is conditional love. And it's love that's underbased by resentment. That I love you, but I also hate you.
Yeah.
That I feel like I'm so reliant on you.
Yeah. I've noticed this, again, like I was saying, going on in the community, this very almost claustrophobic relationship between children and their parents, that the parents are, as we've said, sort of quite controlling, caring and controlling, and the youth are frustrated but dependent.
Yeah.
They don't know how to be independent.
Sorry, can I?
Yeah.
One of the points, there are many issues to be honest I had in mind, but one of the hadiths that I want to mention, because the brother mentioned that people wanted more advice from the Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam. There is a hadith by Imam al-Islam. There are many traditions that are coming to mind, but just I'll say one hadith and then I don't want to take more time. Where the Imam al-Islam says, Imam al-Islam says that your children are your masters for the first 7 years, and then your servants for the next 7 years, and then your friends for the last 7 years. Meaning from 14 to 21, you should take them as friends and take an advisory role. Unfortunately, many parents have a single role and they don't realize that this child should be different, should be treated differently from this child. Mm-hmm. this child is 5 and this one is 15. Now, for them, both of those are children, and they do not differentiate between the age groups. Now, the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam differentiated between the different age groups. And after 14, you should give them the role of an advisor and a friend.
Right.
Rather than calling them son, you say buddy or something. I don't want to say any rude word or anything like that, but you know, make them feel comfortable.
Yeah.
So they can feel that my father has given me that role. And I personally do feel that had it not been my father's, even though there is a lot of age gap between me and my father, more than 40 years of age gap, but had it not been his positive upbringing, in the sense that, you know, he started taking advice after 13, 14, and he started treating me like a friend and said, well, what do you think I should do? Mm-hmm. I started feeling responsible and like an adult that, okay, I have to advise my dad now.
Right.
So I started feeling very much, and many of my other uncles and aunts said that he is much more mature, and I think it wasn't me. It was my parents who made me feel more mature and like an adult.
Yeah.
And unfortunately what happens is that even if children go into their 20s, parents say, I have already got the insurance, you know, don't worry about it. So they're still treating them and giving them responsibilities like teenagers.
Yeah.
And not treating them like 20-year-olds. And that they must learn to let go and say, no, he is no longer a child. This person has grown up, they have their own children, or they should have their own children now.
Yeah.
So they should treat them like an adult and say, what do you think I should do? Or, you know, and that is very important. And I think that sometimes is missing.
It's actually helping them to become an adult in a way.
Yes.
That you don't want to cultivate this relationship of dependence where your child in their late 20s still doesn't know how to pay bills and everything. So the parent needs to see it as assisting the young person in the ways of the world, how to manage the household, rather than being overprotective.
I think it's a good opportunity for parents to build that relationship. So, you know, I have a car, I pay for the insurance, for example, or I pay for the bills. Like doing small incremental kind of responsibilities can go quite a long way to giving us that experience and building us up. Because I think, like you said, a lot of the time we come out of university or we come out of school, and by the way, we don't know how to pay bills. That's not taught at university, just to be clear. So
I mean, I think that's the same thing. It's a
society thing as well.
Yeah,
like, it's not just Muslim; it's everyone.
Yes,
everyone
you go through education, and then you get your degree, and then you go out into society, and you actually realise I haven't been taught anything about managing economics. You know, I don't even understand anything about economics. Negotiating in the workplace, you know, many things. So,
can I make another point? Sorry.
Yeah.
No, it's good.
It's good.
One of the things that I've learned in my life is that many times, many parents have let go very early. So many people are very controlling, and many people have let go at the age of 10, 11, 12, and the son or the daughter says, I'm doing my homework, I'll not go to mosque today. I don't want to have dinner with you. I'm going to do everything separately. And they have given the wrong message that, okay, you are now the parent, and they run the parents.
Yes.
And that shouldn't happen. There should be a very strong and good relationship. A bad relationship with parents or with the siblings will result in a bad relationship with their spouses and their children. Time and time again, statistics have shown in psychology that children who come from broken families or parents who were very distant and did not communicate, they will go on to do the same thing with their spouses. And so the parents have to play that role in a positive way, and have a relationship with the children. Not that let them go completely. That's not what I'm implying. Have a positive relationship.
It has to be balanced.
It has to be balanced. So give them the responsibility, but don't say that, okay, now go and run your own life. Run your own life.
It's almost like the best example analogy is like a manager on a football pitch. You're just on the side. The players are still playing.
Yes.
But you're not going out there and then starting to take if the penalty comes up, it's not the manager steps up. He's still there at all time, and he's not. And that's sometimes that's the way I try and visualize. Whenever I'm talking to myself and saying, "How am I parenting?
Yeah.
Am I being a manager or a rescue?"
I mean, also, inshallah, again, we can look at. Actually, I mean, this is something that isn't so much talked about when we think about Imams of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. We talk a lot about their suffering and the trials that they went through. But perhaps, there isn't so much of a discussion of the kind of relationships they had with their children. I mean, we know that there was incredible respect, between the children and I mean, I think even between the siblings. I know that Imam Hussein alayhi salam didn't walk ahead of Imam Hassan because Imam Hassan was older. And there's all that akhlaq that maybe has been lost. And so perhaps, yes, I mean, Sayyidina, what you're talking about is in a way an imbalance in respect between either the parents are not, or you're talking about that as well, they're not respecting the young person. Yeah. And likewise, when you have these dominant children who boss their parents about, the children haven't been taught how to give the right respect to their parents. And so
if you look at the number of traditions that we have, the fiqh of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, we have the highest number of traditions. We are the only school of thought that has over 500,000 traditions. Now, if you look at the number of traditions, the highest number of traditions are for salat, for namaz, for prayers.
Yeah.
And then they will be probably for tahara and hajj. And so these are ibadat. And the highest number of traditions after that are in the chapter of marriage. Now, so how many of these do we ever mention?
Yes.
Number one.
True.
Number two, what about the social and the society? The nucleus of society is basically a family, a marriage. The marriage itself is a nucleus. Now, the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam have given a lot of rulings because people actually did ask them a lot of questions. But unfortunately, never those questions get across from our member or our, we should have more workshops, more sessions. One of the things that I really liked about the Jewish faith, the Orthodox Jews, the practicing Jews, is that they all have mentors from a very young age.
Okay.
So in all of their professional careers, they will have a mentor, and in their personal life, they have mentors. And so a person who is basically, like guiding them and then continuously there for them to advise them.
Okay.
Now, we have teachers, but we don't have mentors.
Thank you, and inshallah we can continue with that point after the break. We are just going to go to break. It's time for Maghrib down here in London, and inshallah we will see you in approximately 5 to 10 minutes. In fact, I haven't been told how long break we've got, but I think it's about 5 minutes, inshallah. So we'll see you afterwards. Assalamu alaikum, welcome back to Let's Talk Marriage on Ahlul Bayt TV, and in the last part of the show, which is running up to 9:30 BST, we are going to be talking about a mentorship program for young people. As we have heard, that young people are in need of having someone to talk to. Sometimes they don't feel comfortable to talk to their parents, and we really need to better prepare for marriage much earlier on in life. So, Brother Mustafa Khan, I know that you have been involved in this, is that correct? Or you've held workshops? Or
so IUS haven't. I think we've previously hosted a few workshops, I think obviously with the good work that Abbas does as well. Mm-hmm. I think that's something we can look to extend and make more regular. So I think what we hear a lot, they seem to be once in a blue moon, these sort of activities or these kind of programs. I think it would be good to have them more often on a regular basis, or even get them as like a flagship event or a flagship series that happens every year, so people know that, okay, I may not be able to raise my concerns, in Muharram or Ramzan, but in this particular month, it's a dedicated almost session that we could potentially run across whatever centres we may have.
What kind of support would you need for that? I mean, it's easy to say, we need to have a mentorship program, we're going to do that. But what are the logistics for going into that?
I think the first thing would be getting the SM or the experts, so marriage experts like Abbas and Sid as well. So both religious as well as people, obviously parents as well, actually experienced individuals who'd like to step forward and share their story. Logistical wise, I think it's not that difficult to set up. We've set up previous events before. I think it's more about getting the kind of questions and the kind of topics covered and making sure they're covered by the relevant people. I think that's more of the content basically is what would need to be refined and take time to really build, to make sure that if people who can't attend those events, it can be shared more widespread, so the message does actually filter down.
Brother Abbas, you going to say?
I think this is Said raised a very interesting point. He said mentors as part of your life mentors, and then specific mentors for the purpose of marriage. Now, the point of, I think Mustafa has raised a good point. The skill of being a mentor is one that can be, actually it's a program you can run, mentoring skills. That's one you can run. The person, so there's a skill, and then who is the mentor? Now, this is where I think someone like Mustafa should take ownership, because I often say you should go out and find your best man and bridesmaid now, even before you're married, 18, 19, 20, 21. You should be identifying who is it, my best man, could be 1 or 2 or 3 people, and who is my bridesmaid. 1, 2 or 3 people. These are your mentors. These are the people who you now start your relationship now, and until they attend your death or you attend their death, that relationship ends then. Because you don't only need mentorship, it's pre-marriage, after marriage. Now I've had children. Is this normal? What's sort of sleep training? What's going on? And then they're starting to become teens now. You go the whole spectrum. And then now they're getting married. So that support structure is there. So the skills training, yes, but the person who has to go out and seek them is Mustafa himself, for example, or the person himself has to take ownership.
Mustafa's going to find everybody's best man and bridesmaid.
Find everyone's.
But they should, if they take ownership of their own, then you'll find people. There's always people willing. I think it's in our fitri, it's in our inert nature to want to give back, to want to give back to the system.
I think that's true. People do want to give back. We've just got a call on the line, so we'll just take this. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam, Sister Rebecca. Assalamu alaikum, Marana. Assalamu alaikum, Brother Abbas and Brother Mustafa.
Wa alaikum salam.
While this topic is going on, the parenting role, we're coming across a lot of problems. Quite a few marriages have gone burst because of the problems the boys are facing. Now, I don't know whether I should say this in public or not, but it is one of the most, I've got about 5 cases. Boys are impotent, and I think Brother Mustafa and Brother Abbas should, while they're doing their workshop or whatever, make people aware of this problem, and how should parent get involved. Obviously, the boys can't go and talk to the mothers or regarding the problem, but they can go and talk to the fathers regarding the problem, and it would save a lot of hassle. There's about 5 marriages breaking up, broken up because of that.
Sorry, I didn't quite catch what the problem was you were saying.
Impotence.
Oh, right. Okay. Okay. Thank you for. It's important to raise that, because again, that's something that traditionally is not spoken about.
But again, that role, your best man, the first point of contact is your best man, not your parents. It's very difficult to say it. Sometimes to have those conversations.
Yeah.
But
also, I was just going to say that, to be honest, I mean, this is the first time I've heard about this kind of role for a best man or bridesmaid. And also, does it have an Islamic model? I mean, is this what Ahlul Bayt Salam had? Did they appoint a best man or bridesmaid for their children or for other people?
You can give it whatever title you like.
Right.
But, the advisor's role, like Mushir or Antaliq.
Okay.
These roles are very important, and to me a mentor is a very good role. a person who is older, successful, mature, sensible, and professional. You know, they know what they're talking about. Many times we have people who are, you know, certain things are education related, certain things are skill related. Now, the British NHS system has discovered that counselling is not an education, it's a skill. So they said you don't need any education, it's a skill if you don't have it. Now I have seen that people who have taken that role have sometimes led people to destroy their marriages. Now, not realizing that they were doing the wrong thing. For example, I'll give you a very short example and very quickly. Now, I know a couple who went to a person, an older person, and said, you know, we're having problems. So the wife discussed with him the problems that she was facing, and he said, okay, I'll talk to your husband. I happened to be there, so I overheard some of the things that were going on, and so he quickly phoned up the husband and said, okay, you're having problems. He said, yes, we're having some problems. Now, it could have been sorted out.
Right.
So he started saying, well, your wife was saying this about you. He said, is that what she was saying? What else was she saying about me? God. So what happened was that I said, look, this was not a divorce case. It was only a case where they had problems. But you have now made it a divorce case.
Oh my God.
And he said, how did I make it a divorce case? I've only been honest. I said, there are 3 places where you're supposed to hide and cover. Rather than saying, this is what your wife was saying. Even if he said, well, my wife says these kind of things about me. You should try and say, well, no, try and keep it positive.
Yeah.
And try and bring them closer. Now, a mentor should be someone who's very sensible and understands the problems. Someone who's been through that role, and you are now looking up to their success in marriage and whatever issues. So it has to be, Imam Ali Islam has, you're saying that if they had a better Islam, Imam Ali Islam has a whole chapter, not just Imam Ali Islam, but from the Holy Prophet to, all the Imams have said something about taking advice from other people. Imam Ali Islam says that take advice even if it was from a wall, meaning it is that useful.
Yeah.
And he says that the one who has taken advice has used the brain of another person, and the one who hasn't taken advice has forsaken even his own brain, has not even used his own brain properly. So, so the whole concept of mentor or a taliq or mushid, a person who advises, has existed in the Islamic traditions. So I would say that the terms may be different, and what Brother Abbas is pointing to is not just a bridesmaid or a best man.
Yeah.
He's talking about that role, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, exactly. And the principle of it.
Yeah, the principle. And I do believe that principle, that role does exist in the teachings of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. When they trained certain people and they said, hang on, did I not tell you not to interfere in certain issues? He said, yes, but you didn't tell him not to interfere. So he said, well, I trained him in this and I did not train you in this.
Right.
So that role exists in the teachings of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. And I think it would play, because like I said earlier on, you cannot talk about everything to your parents. And many times you want to tell your parents, but it is best not coming from you.
Yeah.
Coming from your friend or a cousin or a role that can easily do that. Even sometimes your in-laws, you want to say to them, don't interfere. I have a case where the boy was telling me that I have a very good relationship with my wife. But whenever my wife goes over to my in-laws and comes back, we have fights for 1 to 2 weeks.
Wow.
So I said, I probably need to speak to your wife then. So I said, well, she said everything is fine, but my parents always are telling me that where is he hiding the rest of his wealth, Why is he not buying a bigger house? Why aren't you getting a bigger car? We told all of our relatives that he's very well off and he's, so he's basically covering up. And so I said, your probably parents are not guiding you properly. And that's not how marriages work.
Yeah.
If you really think and believe that he is hiding something from you, then you need to win his trust to be able to disclose, for him to be able to disclose everything to you. So I think the advisors and your best man or whatever title you want to give them, the mentors, I usually like the term mentor, a taliq or a mushid, an advisor or a mentor, has to be someone sensible who's been through that phase. Now, my wife and myself, you know, being psychology, we both have an interest. She is a psychologist and I had psychology before going to home. We were going through different books, you know, when we were bringing up our children. You know, sometimes you have phases and you think, why is my child doing what they're doing?
Yeah.
Now, like a manual type of thing, you know. So we went through, child psychologists have written books, your child is now 4. This is what they will be going through. And it is very accurate. And if your child is an exception, they will have chapters on them as well. So there is expert advice out there, but we don't know where to find, where to look. So they, you know, these mentors and sometimes people who've gone through training, people who are professionally trained as mentors and as counselors for just marriages and you know, people who parenting, it would help people to understand, and also for parents.
Yeah.
Now your children are married, how much should you interfere?
Yeah.
Or should you interfere? What is the role of, you know, parents and grandparents? So I think we always need advice in every role we take up.
Yeah, true. Brother Abbas, you're going to...
You had some points. I mean, it's so refreshing to see someone who's... That's exactly, you know, the type of methodology and the type of outlook to explore.
But you're saying it's refreshing, so that means that you don't come across that very often.
Yeah, I'm saying it's refreshing because the mentality of giving away control, it's a generation thing, you know.
Yeah.
We are a very patriarchal society, so for Syed to even say to give it is refreshing because it's giving. That is the real way of the Ahlul Bayt, you know, is growth by, you know.
So maybe I mean, if we think about the role of the role that Hussainiyas and the mosques are playing, you know, so much, I mean, gets spent in the month of Ramadan on iftar as an example, or, you know, lectures here, lectures there, but maybe they should be setting up an ongoing kind of program. I mean, there should be. Was this difficult? Is this asking too much? Or?
No. I think they're not playing their role. The Holy Prophet wasn't just a mosque. Mosque was everything. Okay. Now, we shouldn't be just individuals and centers. At the moment, we're just centers. We're not a community.
Yeah.
Now, unfortunately, I don't want to criticize too much. It applies to all Muslims. I'm not just talking about the followers of Ahlul Bayt. We are closer probably to each other than the other communities many times. But you know, when you come in, it is not that we're all separate individuals. We come in, listen, and everyone leaves. Not everyone should communicate with each other.
Yeah.
You know, one should say, where are you from? Who is? So we should be more like a community.
Yeah.
Number one. Number two, all of these programs should not be run from, you know, universities or centers which are not religious.
Right.
This is the responsibility of religion to play their role. So if people like myself are not playing their role, that's why people are looking outside for that role.
Yeah.
So we haven't played our role. Now, the mentor program should be run from Hussainiyas and Masajid, from the, you know, religious centers, and there should be a program where people can actually come and talk. People. And it should
be mainstream, is what you're saying, rather than a side stream. Mainstream.
It should be side stream. It should be the mainstream people who are leading
discussions. Yeah.
Number two, there should be people who are professionally trained to be able to give time and say, you can come in. As my leadership role in the next phase, I would love to start something off where we have a monthly session with a panel who sits down and says, okay, you can come in once a month and discuss your issues here. You can say what the problems are. You can address those issues and say, okay, well, you know, I'm having this problem with this person or my wife or my child. And people can actually address, and we can say, hang on, you know, you can, just like a court, just like, well, not like a court, but, you know.
A discussion panel.
Yeah.
You know, a discussion panel where people can come in and discuss their issues, rather than saying, oh, we don't have. More than half of the psychiatric patients are people who had no one to talk to.
Yeah.
I have been taken into places now where I have gone in and you know this prevent. Now, so the parents didn't know how to tackle this. Now this child heard as a 15-year-old that Imam Mahdi will come and there will be, you know, the dhuhr will happen and we'll fight. So he went and discussed at school, and the teachers reported him to social services, and they got the now. So they so he's now growing up to be a terrorist. And so they took him in, and I said, hang on, do you actually understand what's going on? Do you understand that the Christ or Jesus will come? He said, yes, we understand all of that. So he said, this is what he's talking about. Jesus will come and answer. He said, well, there was no one to tell us. Now, more than half of the problems in the community exist because there is no communication, and there is no professional communication. A person who can actually guide professionally. And I think marriage will not fail if the people had advice before getting married. They rush into marriage, and they come out rushing. That this relationship hasn't worked, so let's call it a day.
Ongoing.
And it's a divorce.
But you know the call. Let me just touch on this call because she's raised a very important point.
Yes. Actually, I want to touch on
impotence,
that. Yeah.
Now, a couple of weeks ago, we did a workshop in Peterborough. In that workshop, we split the gents and the ladies. When we had the gents only session, this is where we raised this point of psychosexual issues. One of them is impotence. One of them is not being able to consummate the marriage as well. These are like real issues where the couple is suffering on their own.
Yeah.
Either the male can't consummate or the woman can't consummate for whatever reason it is. And because they don't know where to turn to, it's unfortunate that they're breaking up. So if there's anyone who's listening, Relate have a program called psychosexual therapy, which has like a 99% success rate, or a very high success rate, which helps a couple from not being able to consummate a marriage or whatever issues are related to psychosexual to actually going to getting over these issues. And because it's not, the information is not available.
Yes, there is professional help for all of those issues, but we don't know where to turn to.
But also, sorry, yes, Mustafa.
I was just going to say, I think IUS or other organisations who work, with Islamic centres can play that link basically between
the generation link,
not just a generation link, but as well as the society at large versus our communities, and also, I think what's key is the embedding. We don't have the embedding of these key issues or the platform to do these things. So we have all the venues, we have all the people, it's just the organisation and bringing it together is something that IUS or MSC or other organisations who do actually sit between the Muslims and the kind of society at large can actually play.
I was also going to say, with regard to psychotherapy and all of these services that are available in the non-Muslim society, Muslims are often reluctant to go because the people will misjudge what the issue is. They'll blame Islam, or say, well, the problem is that you're Muslim, that's the problem, and so generally people don't go. Again, realistically speaking, Sayyidina, is it possible to train Muslim psychotherapists to
You'll be surprised to see how many there are within our own community.
Yeah, there's a whole community.
I used to think that there were probably just 100 to 200 doctors, and when I recently found out that there are more than 1,000 doctors, probably more than 1,500 doctors, and there are so many other professional medics within our community, and there are so many other experts. When I was trying to collect the data, during my presidency of Majlis Ulama on the different professions, and then I realized that, hang on, it's not something that we can do in a week or two. There were so many experts out there that we needed to actually tap, and many of these people probably do not play an active role in the community or in the Imam Bargas, in the Hussainiyas. We don't, so we never find out about them.
Right.
So we need to actually announce and work in a way that we can actually tap into their expertise. And they want to contribute, but because of certain issues in the Hussainiyas, they are reluctant to get involved into any of the politics or whatever, or the functions of the. So I think the expertise exists in our community, and we only need to tap into the professional help within our own community.
So it's a link again between the Hussainiyas and again the mainstream society.
Through basically bring in the professionals, the community. So there should be a central role who brings the two together: the community and the professionals, or the professional help.
And as you say, again, these people are probably working in hospitals, in clinics, and so on. And the fact that they are, Muslim, is that's not the primary aspect of their identity. They're helping everybody, so nobody knows that they are. They've got that. Yeah.
So I've recently been connected to a lot of like psychotherapists, psychologists, etc., and they have a monthly session now with Sheikh Muhammad Ali Shumali, who tries to explain to them, for example, on the issue of if a client came to you and has gay tendencies or lesbian tendencies, or all these real issues that these counselors are facing, or these psychotherapists. So just there is a community out there that is, there's a group of now psychotherapists that are meeting on a monthly basis, and it's a growing community. I think one of the philosophies of counseling is, I think it's a fundamental tenet that you should never counsel someone you know, for example. Or you should never counsel someone in your own immediate community, because you want that person to get to closure. And every time they see you, you're a reminder of that issue. So that's why even the code of counseling or whatever.
This would explain, like, when you spend some years helping out a friend and then they're fine and they don't talk to you after that.
because you remind them.
And one of the other things is that confidentiality. You know, when I'm saying professionalism, there are many issues relating to professionalism. One of the things is confidentiality. You are not supposed to disclose a person's issue to anyone. So we tell our members of the community that, you know, confidentiality goes without saying, but people still say, you know, I want to discuss something, but I don't want you to disclose it to anyone. Now, lack of professionalism exists in our community. So we need to actually train enough people within our community, and many people have the potential, especially a lot of the women who are now housebound because of children, but when the children have gone to school, they can help out because they are very educated, they're experts. All they need is just some training, and then they could actually during the day help out so many other women in the community, and also likewise men who can take, you know, similar roles.
I think also, as you say, this is the issue of it's an issue of trust as well. That, I mean, maybe this is one of the primary issues that people say, I cannot mention my issues because I know it's going to get round Chinese whispers, and then I'm too ashamed to go. I won't be able to go out in public ever again. And this is very sad that, you know, this is the situation with the community, that there isn't that trust, and that people can't have that confidence to, number one, you know, go to a Hassania and speak to someone who's professional, speak to someone who is impartial and balanced, well trained, and is going to observe confidentiality as well. I mean, we need that.
These problems do exist. I 100% agree with you. Now, our parents also need help. Now, we've talked about, you know, because the topic is parenting. Our parents also need advice. Now, what happens is, you know, there's a saying that you shouldn't send an elderly person to look for a car and to buy a car, and you shouldn't send a young person to look for their spouse, because the first person comes and says they're like everyone, and the elderly person says, I don't want to walk much, you know, get the first car. So parents also need advice and guidance, and children also need. And that role has to be taken from professionals.
Thank you. We've just got a couple of minutes till we have to actually wrap up. So perhaps we've got one point here about the idea in this country that as a 16-year-old you are an adult and you make your own decisions. And again, I mean, we've touched on this a little bit, but again, this clash in mentality, you know, in young people, that they're considered as adults to make their own decisions, and yet, you know, we've also got the Islamic perspective with regard to that respect between parents and children. Actually, we've gone down to 1 minute now. So, what's your advice on trying to maintain that balance? What should we be aiming for in terms of that balance?
There are many aspects, again, because the time is short. But one thing that all our members of the society should maintain is that young people are now looking for social media and other things to look for spouses, and they make very quick decisions, and they tell their parents, and, you know, I've made the decision, and you have to stick with me and support me. Now, obviously, they both need help. Parents need help to how to tackle this issue, and the young children also need help, that this is probably not the right way. You do not just choose your partner over the, you know, online, and then that's it, you know, everything will work out. And I have many cases where young children have decided to get married to someone online, and that hasn't worked.
Right.
And the marriage hasn't worked, issues have arisen, but they think, no, this is perfectly fine because you're on completely different mode of communication when you have not seen each other. So I think young people must realize that they are not mature enough to make a quick decision on about a great future. Marriage is for life. In Islam, it is for life. One should not decide that I'll divorce after a year, then another. That's not the way.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you all for a great discussion, and I hope, well, I'm sure that'll be useful for our audience as well. Inshallah, we'll see you again in future programs. Thank you so much. And thank you for watching. Thank you also for the call, and sorry for any calls that we were not able to take. Please do feel free to write to info@ahlulbayt.tv if you do have any questions. And inshallah, next week will be the last in this series. If you would like more, please do write in, and we wish you a good night. Assalamu alaikum.